As we know, media has gone through quite an evolution. From when we first started looking at traditional forms of media, now today we may think and talk a lot about digital forms of media or new media, but the reality for advertisers and marketing communicators is that we kind of need to use both. So we need to have an understanding of both the traditional forms of media and then also some of those newer forms of media that are becoming more relevant today. This presentation obviously is going to talk about the traditional media channels. What do we mean by traditional media? These are the ones that would probably typically come to your mind if you thought about very kind of traditional and standard advertising. Television, radio, outdoor, magazines, newspapers. These are our primary media when we think about paid media placement for our ads. We can look at each one of these media forms and kind of break them down by disadvantages and advantages. And now you guys can read through the full list of advantages and disadvantages. I'll just point out a couple of things. With television, the greatest thing that you have is this great reach. If you want to reach a lot of people, television is the way to go, because regardless of what people say in terms of our media preferences, people are still watching TV. Whether we're changing up when we watch it through a DVR, whether we're streaming things, we are still watching the programming on television. And then it becomes up to us as marketing communicators to figure out how to get our ads there and get them seen. And then that leads us to a disadvantage, which is this idea of great clutter or competition for people's attention. Think about how we watch TV. We're often multitasking. We may be on Facebook, we may be tweeting, we may be reading a magazine, we may be doing homework. So there's a lot of things with television that compete for our attention and that pull our attention from one message and pull it in the direction of others. And that can be a really big disadvantage. Radio might not pop into your head as being a primary advertising media these days, but really radio has a whole lot of benefit. It's a really great localized advertising medium. It allows for, let's say, stores to really get our attention when we are in motion. A lot of radio listening happens when people are in cars, and that's a really good thing to move us along that consumer decision process and move us towards things like shopping. Right? The disadvantages of radio, it might be that, people are channel surfing like we do with television, and also we might find with radio that some people find the lack of images as being a drawback. If you need to demonstrate how your product works, radio is not going to be the best choice. Outdoor advertising as a medium, we think of things like billboards, we think of things like transit advertising, so on bus stops, on trains, anything that's going on outside of the home. The greatest thing with outdoor is that you have these great, big, huge, spectacular ads, and that makes a really great impression on people. We also see quite a broad reach, which means that oftentimes a diverse group of people will be able to see your message because, so many people travel along highly used routes, and they may be different ages, they may be different races, so you get this kind of cross-hatching of a community. Some of the negatives or the drawbacks of outdoor, a big thing that pops to my mind is that I can't really say too much. People are going to look at a billboard for a fraction of a second because most of the time you're walking past, you're driving past, and it's just not safe for people to spend too much time with outdoor advertising. And that can be a little bit of a drawback. But still people do outdoor advertising. And I did want to point out, if you can look at this visual and you can see what kinds of brands or what kinds of organizations really do well with outdoor advertising. If you look down at the bottom, the services and amusements, well, that makes a whole lot of sense, as does transportation, hotels and resorts, and retail. Anything that's kind of action-oriented where people are outside moving about and maybe looking for a place to go for dinner, looking for a place to go spend time with their family. So those kinds of advertisements work really well in an outdoor environment. Magazines are another one of our traditional media. What I love about magazines is that we really can target, because think about magazines, they're very specific. I get Cooking Light magazine, right? And that tells you a whole lot about me. There are going to be people who are looking for healthy alternatives. There are people who want to stay fit. Probably an age group of people are really going to start to mass around that kind of magazine. So you can really do quite a bit of segmentation. That's a good thing. Also, too, ads look spectacular in a magazine because they've got great production quality. The disadvantages of magazines is that, well, right now we're facing a little bit of a crossroad, right? Magazines are being challenged by online readership through our iPads and through our Kindles and all those kinds of things. So we are seeing a little bit of a declining readership. And also, too, there are tons of ads in magazines, oftentimes more ads than content, and that's going to hurt people's attention on the ads. And we're not going to really spend the amount of time that maybe we should with an ad. We're just overwhelmed by too many ads in magazines. And finally, we have newspapers. And, once again, these are not dead, regardless of what people say. They really work well for local advertisements. Once again, retail stores who want to get you into their shops. You can deliver coupons through newspapers, and that's always a great thing. The newspapers kind of come every day, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. It gives us a lot of opportunity to advertise, but then, if somebody missed our ad on Monday, they're not picking up Monday's newspaper on Wednesday and reading through it. Once again, you also see a lot of clutter in newspapers, and that's a bad thing. And also, a lot of newspapers are in black and white, and let's face it, that's not the most exciting way to deliver your ads. So we've seen the traditional forms of media. Don't forget them, because regardless of what anybody says, these are still probably the greatest foundation of the types of media we're going to use when we're advertising for our brands. They're still very relevant in the field today.